Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Don't Wait Till Monday podcast. I'm your host, Kirsten Quigley, and today we have Alyssa Collins with us as a guest.
Hi, Mom.
And so I'm just going to introduce the topic a little bit, and then, as always, introduce her. I'll let her introduce herself. If you don't know Alyssa Collins, would you identify as like a fitness guru? Like, would that be like a
Yeah,
acceptable
health and
term?
fitness. Yeah.
Health and fitness, yeah, like a lot of wellness. And she has a following on her platform now. But before we get into all that, I have known Alyssa since college. That's where we met at NC State, and we cheered together and we worked together for a little bit as well. And since then, I've just been following her journey. I feel like your journey was really starting kind of like when I was meeting you too, and especially like when COVID hit and like all of those things. So yeah, I've been able to follow her journey and her fitness life and now building it as a career. So I thought it'd be great to bring her onto an episode and just talk through, her journey through all of this and get to know a little more behind the scenes of her. So Alyssa, if you want to introduce yourself a little more.
Hello, my name is Alyssa. I have been an athlete my whole life, pretty much doing gymnastics and where I met Kirsten and cheer, and then studied nutrition in undergrad, currently going for my master's so I can step into the nutrition and personal training wellness coach space, which I've been doing, and it's been a blast. So that's me
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have you here because, like I said, I've been following you since maybe not the very beginning, but I feel like since you've gotten to really into your studies and everything. So I've just loved watching you grow and watching all of your content come together. And I think you're doing an amazing job. So I just want to praise you for that. And I'm excited to
Thank
get to
you.
know a little more and dig a little deeper. So the first question we can go ahead and dive into is when did you start lifting slash how did you really get into it?
So I would say that I had a lot of positive influences around fitness and nutrition. My aunt was a Zumba instructor. Or not my mom, my stepmom was running 5Ks when I met her and did a half Ironman. So lots of exercise influences. And I started going to the gym when I was about 16 with my friends from work because they were a little bit older. So they would all drive and we'd go to the gym. Like I laugh about it now because I see the high schoolers in the gym now and I'm like, oh, so annoying. But I was literally the same. So
Uh-huh.
can't say anything. But yeah, I was basically just copying all the Instagram workouts because fitness influencers started to become a thing when I was
Mhm.
like 12, 15, 16. So I was just basically copying, pasting Instagram workouts.
So it seems like you had a lot of personal influence around you, and I don't know if there was like a rollover with cheer because I know personally for me, I lifted a little bit throughout high school with track and stuff, and then I didn't really get into lifting until college, and we had like our trainers and everything. But it seems like yours was a little more outside of that and a little more like personal to you with closer people around.
Yes, I would definitely agree. And I think also having cheer when we did like strength and conditioning in the weight room, it felt so official. I'm like, what's a D1 at?
No, I would go back to those weight room days any day because now I go in the gym and I'm like, what do I look up an Instagram thing? Like, luckily, actually, one of my trainers made something for me. But besides that, yeah, I'm kind of like lost in the sauce when I go there.
It's crazy that like even when you do know what you're doing, you still go into the gym and you're like, I don't know.
So seeing like people online and especially like you were saying, fitness influencing like really started to become a thing when you were like getting into it or maybe a little younger. When did you realize for yourself that this is something I want to make a career out of this, like fitness wise? And then also, when did you take that turn to be like, I also want to have a platform out of this?
It's funny that you say that because I still feel like it doesn't feel right to call it a career because I kind of just started off posting workouts that other people were doing low key. I was just copying and pasting, but I just
I
wanted
mean,
to share my progress and like try and get Jack. And then also one of my friends is a model. She was actually on Too Hot to Handle, if you know
oh
Britain
my
Bird.
gosh.
I went to Hawaii when I was 16 and she was like going super hard into wanting to be a model and she did it. So proud of her.
Yes.
But she was like, you have to post like this and you have to do this, this, and this. And so she was like a super huge influence for me to actually like know kind of what I'm doing on social media.
Yeah, that's really nice to have. So I guess before the social media came into play, though, it seems like that was more of like a want to just track, yourselves and see your progression. So I guess outside of that, just looking at fitness as a whole, when did that sort of become, because you're a trainer, correct?
Mhm.
So when did that turning point come? Like you knew like this is my passion, this is what I want to do.
During COVID, I decided to use the knowledge that I had built up to go for my personal training certification, which it sounds really cool, but honestly, like once you have it, anytime, sorry, someone tells you that they have it, you're like, money, good job. But I guess with any certification or degree. So I started doing training at like the college gym, and then now I'm taking online clients, and it's just
Oh.
been really fun to learn.
And you have a 4-week program that's currently out right now, right? And is that like open to everyone
Mhm.
to
So
use?
yeah, I created it as a challenge at first because I'm still trying to cultivate like an online community, although no one was actually posting their workouts. But I also get that because if you're just doing it, you're not like wanting to post your workout on your personal Instagram. So it's fine.
Yeah.
But I did it as a challenge. We had the winner, and now it's available as a 4 week guide for people to have something to go off of.
I was looking into it because, like I was saying, my one trainer, he made me something. And then I was like, oh, when I wrap this up, I'm going to start Alyssa's. It's been on the back of my mind, but my schedules are so inconsistent. And clearly, this is an excuse, but I do plan on getting to it one of these 4 weeks of my life.
It's a good one.
Um, but yeah, I'm excited to try it out. And I have no doubt that it's greatness that you have put together. So I also know, like you were mentioning, that you kind of started everything like in college. And I know that your degree was nutrition science.
Yes.
And so when did like a nutritional focus come into play? Was it like fitness first and then nutrition, or was it kind of like all happening at once? Like how did that play out?
I would say honestly, probably food came first. I've always been surrounded by focus on food as long as I can remember.
Mm.
My parents always used to try and make home cooked meals. My mom was always on and off Weight Watchers, and my parents got divorced, which also plays a huge role. So bookmark that.
We will
And
bookmark that.
yeah, my stepmom again came into my life around maybe when I was like 12 or 13. So she was doing her own weight loss thing because she was in her 20s and running 5Ks and meal prepping. So always surrounded by food. And then when I spent my entire childhood in cheer pretty much.
Hmm.
So like middle school practice and then getting a ride straight to my all-star practice. So as soon as food basically started to become under my own control of feeding myself was when nutrition started to become a focus. And with
Gotcha.
that, of course, comes the whole learning. But
Yes, which we will get into. So given that it seems like this has kind of been passion with like travel and everything, like I've always known that I wanted to, but focusing specifically on sustainable travel and everything, that really grew for me when I saw it in front of my face in college when I learned more about it. But I feel like with you and fitness and nutrition, it has always been around you since you were younger. So looking back, are there any times you could have guessed or you knew when I grow up, maybe you said like I want to be a teacher, I want to do this, but you knew like back of your head it's going to be in the nutrition and fitness industry?
that's a good question. Honestly, I don't know like how young or if there was a time that I could have guessed. I've always just been so obsessed with it since, which maybe was not a healthy obsession to begin with. It's a healthy obsession now. But yeah, I've just always wanted to learn about it.
So always like naturally gravitated towards it. You can go
More
ahead.
selfishly, honestly, than anything, because you want to like apply all these concepts to yourself. And the more you learn, the more you can share with people.
I mean, no, fair enough. And I feel like we both can kind of relate with that because it's like when we learn things, we want to share that. That is why we both have platforms. My travel one is building, but
I'm loving your travel content, especially with the
thank you.
sustainability thing. It's so important to focus on. So I love it.
It is, thank you. And I'm excited for what can come in the future. But anyways, with all of that being said, and how we were just mentioning, you were saying like when you were growing up, you were surrounded by it, and maybe when you were younger and food was became in your own control, how that kind of comes with maybe some negative things. So my next question for you would be, what were some things that you struggled with on this journey or any big turning points that got you to where you are today?
I think the struggle was always between wanting to be something I couldn't be and wanting to be something that I could be. And that was always at the forefront of my mind. And it also just comes with like the social beauty standards of like,
Hmm.
it was tall, skinny models, and I'm 5 foot nothing, and I'm short and thick. So I'm like, I had the choice to either starve myself or get jacked and be fun size.
So
But
it was kind of like a not like identity crisis, but like a pull between the two. Which way am I gonna go? Sort of deal.
yeah. And it's always like, yeah, I should do this because I can be healthier that way. But like, I do want to still be a 5 foot, but like, never gonna
I
happen.
feel like too, obviously, like I never go one episode without mentioning cheer. But as much as I obviously love the sport and everything that came with it is something too that I'm sure played a huge role on you being in that industry. It's not really anything that people don't know what comes with the struggles of some cheerleaders wearing the uniform that's cropped and wanting to look the skinniest in it or wanting to just look a certain way or fit a mold that maybe like society has for us and different things like that too, I'm sure probably played a big role in your life and journey growing up and with all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy to think that so many girls have the same experience when doing sports like gymnastics and cheer and track and swimming, where their bodies are just on display. But yeah, through that, I struggled immensely with negative body image, sometimes body dysmorphia. I developed an eating disorder. And it's funny how you would never think about it at the time, but when you're learning about the causes of eating disorders in school, and my professors are like, well, comments from parental figures and the need for attention, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, check box, check box. That happened to me.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that with like you don't realize something until maybe someone says it and you're like, that's why this ha not that's not like that's why this happened to me, but that makes so much sense why I went through this or I went through that. So if you are willing and comfortable to speak on that a little bit, I wonder, was it in these conversations like in college where you realized what was happening or when you were going through maybe struggles with like an eating disorder or body dysmorphia, were you aware of what was happening or were you just mentally going through what was happening and not really aware of what was really happening? If that makes sense.
I was definitely, it does make sense. I was definitely very aware of what I was
Okay.
doing. It actually, crazy enough, it started. There was this girl in middle school who was very, very young, and she like claimed that she had bulimia. And I was like, oh my God, why would you ever? I can never imagine doing that. And then it took over my whole life. It was affecting my health, my social life, and it was nearly debilitating some days. And it was so obsessive. Food was the only thing I could ever think about.
Bulimia, that's when you've, if can you clarify to me what that is exactly?
Binging and purging.
Okay. So is that when you would like make yourself throw up?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So was it something that girl in middle school, like a turning point or kind of like a trigger that started everything, or was it like a ripple effect? Like how did that kind of play
I
out?
I would say probably more of a ripple effect because, and especially like with my parents' divorce and all of the random little things that triggered it, I would never have probably known that that was something that I could use as a really horrible, horrible coping mechanism if I hadn't
Mhm.
seen it before, which is another paradox of sharing eating disorders. So it makes it really difficult and a fine line to walk on.
But it seemed like there was kind of like a lot of maybe obstacles you were facing at that time, like how you mentioned your parents were going through a divorce and different things like that. Was this all kind of like simultaneously happening together?
Probably more of a timeline of my parents were getting divorced. My mom had been on and off dieting. My stepmom also would make comments here and there, which I have a hard time talking about it sometimes because I don't ever want to place blame, but there are things that have happened that I think especially parents, us at our age that are going into parenthood at some point, likely, just should be really careful about the things that they say. Because even though I would tell them that like I want to be skinny and I'm trying to lose weight, and she's like, well, if you're eating all those cookies, you're probably not gonna. I'm like, ah, bad
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah, no, I totally get that and comments. I don't think people really understand how far their words can go, especially if it's like the biggest thing I feel like too is if an older person is saying, you need to eat a cheeseburger or something, and it's like, oh, well, they're just old. It's like, well, I still have a long life ahead of me, and now that's gonna, live with this child or whoever for the rest of their lives. But yeah, and it's kind of similar to how you were saying you don't want to put blame on anyone. So I, growing up, my parents were never really like fitness people. Like my mom, I remember she used to do these like at home workout videos and things, but it was really just like me and my brother in sports. And our eating habits too, we kind of just, I want to say like I didn't eat the healthiest growing up. Like I definitely had a lot of like junk food and we would like go out a lot, just different things. But I feel like it wasn't until actually I lived with Marco where I saw a different point of view and how he prioritized making sure like vegetables are in. And since then, I have completely changed just my eating habits and everything. And I feel like sometimes until something is in front of you, you don't really notice. And sometimes I have a little guilt looking back like on my parents or like putting blame on them to say, I can't believe they let me eat like that growing up because I just didn't have awareness about how eating the rainbow or portioning your plate the correct way. They would tell me like, eat your veggies, Karen. And I'd be like, no. And it was like that was kind of the end of it. So how you were saying with the blame, I don't want to put any on them, but yeah, it's just it's something that happened and there's no one to blame, but it's part of life and it's nothing we can run from or hide. But over this time and when everything was kind of happening, when was a time where you maybe learned or realized or decided, okay, it's time I do something about this, and you took that leap of faith for yourself to work through those struggles you were having and come to terms with a healthy relationship with food?
The leap was definitely slow. And touching back on, I had a similar experience with like, you don't know
Mm-hmm.
what the better option is until you've seen it. And that was something that I struggled with my parents' divorce because my mom had been used to being the primary meal preparer. She's like working all the time and the house is filled with snacks. My dad would usually cook us like meat and vegetables when we were at his house and he didn't have as many snacks. So there was that juxtaposition. And then since I was struggling with food, I was like, Mom, can you please stop buying snacks? But she was just doing her best to feed all the children. And she's like, we have multiple kids in the house and that's what they want. So like, you're gonna
Yeah.
have to deal with it. And I was like, I can't. But yeah, making the leap was slow. Honestly, I don't even know where to start with that one. Going to therapy most definitely helped. And then being on my own, going to college was super, super helpful because I could finally regain control. And like, although just eating disorders are super control based, shift the control that I had around food and make it a little bit more healthy and sustainable.
Yeah, and I feel like, it's nothing's ever a race, right? So as long as you're taking the steps you need and doing what you can do and what's going to help you best, I feel like everyone obviously has their own stories and their own different paths that they have taken. So when it comes to yours, would you say, like, is there anything you would look back and change, sort of how you went about everything, or even how are you doing now with everything? Do you still find yourself mentally battling yourself over different things, or how's life been since that leap of faith?
I would definitely say I wish that I had known that I could get help sooner
Mm,
because you feel so alone and you're so used to having that unhealthy coping mechanism, you don't want to get help. If I could have projected the future and seen how horrible it was going to impact my life, I just wish I could have helped sooner. And since then, it's been amazing. I've learned so many techniques from my therapist, and I've just been able to connect with people on such a personal level from having these experiences. And it's helped me be more positive and educational on social media in general.
yeah, well, I love to hear that happy ending. I'm sure you're still, well, I guess I don't want to assume anything, but seems like, you're working things out pretty well. Do you find yourself ever having any struggles again mentally, or are you pretty past all of that?
There are definitely bad days. And I think something that I've talked to other people about with eating disorder is that it's like, it's a never ending battle. I think the same with depression, like you're going to have your ups and your downs.
Mm-hmm.
And with any other mental illness, is like, there's always going to be ups and downs, but the better it gets, the less downs there are, and the faster you're able to rebound out of things when you feel the cycle coming back and you recognize the triggers and you just learn more about yourself. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess if there was anything you could say, what advice would you give to somebody who may be struggling with this or they know I need to get better? What's some advice you would give to them to also take their leap of faith into happier days?
It's a tough one.
I bet. Because, like I said earlier, everyone's story and journey is like so different. But I feel like for you, kind of you just saying also, you wish you would have done it sooner. If there is anyone struggling with the same sort of things that you were going through, maybe that sparked it for them and been like, my time is now. If I keep waiting, then I'm probably going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I would say that you have to make the decision that you don't want things to continue the way that they are, and that you need to really understand what the impact that you're having is going to have on you and other people for the rest of your life. And it's okay to reach out for help.
It is. Yes, I know that's definitely a big one in all aspects of life and wellness and well-being and health. So I think that's perfect advice to give. Well, thank you for sharing all of that and being really vulnerable with that situation. I'm sure that's not something easy to talk about. So I appreciate you sharing your experiences with that. We're going to shift gears a little here and talk more into social media and your platform and all things on social media. Like I said, I think I maybe mentioned this earlier, but I feel like social media kind of flowed naturally for you. Like you were saying, you were getting like you were in college and you were lifting more and you wanted to start posting your progress. So it really just kind of flowed with your life. It just sort of happened that you started posting more and then gaining a following from have posting those things. Would you agree?
Yes, I would definitely agree. Yeah, it always just flowed pretty naturally. I was always just sharing whatever I was doing, posting all my progress and stuff. And I was able to just use it as a platform to share all my positive stuff and also be really open and vulnerable with people to educate them and communicate with people. And yeah, so the more I learn from school and stuff, the more content I have. And it's great.
I love that. And that's one of the biggest regrets I have with mine because I actually specifically remember when I was a nutrition major for one semester. Um, and I remember sitting in my nutrition class and I literally was like talking to somebody and I said to them like, "Oh my gosh, as I'm learning these things, like I should make a page for it." Clearly, nutrition went nowhere for me because like I said, I took that one class for one semester and like that was it for me and then I found Parks and Rec. But given that I already kind of had that motive, I wish I would have been doing what you were doing and posting while I was in college. Like I wish as I was learning things, I was posting them because now as I want to bring these topics up more again, like I haven't had these discussions. I lose my mind because I constantly think of like travel things, but I'm not in a room where I can just have open discussions. So I'm constantly just like trying to look at what other people are saying on like TikTok or anything. So I definitely missed that I didn't take advantage of using my platform while I was being educated and in the moment. So I think that's great that you did that and that it's turning into what it has for you. I think that's absolutely great. But with all of that too, have you always wanted to have like a social media presence? I know we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier when we were saying kind of like the fitness influencers. But like having a platform, was that kind of always in your like dreams as well? Or to started posting and then you started building a community, just like, oh, all these people relate to me. Like this is great.
Yes. I will say, well, also I want to say that I'm really glad that you're starting now posting all your travel stuff because it
Thank
doesn't
you.
matter if you didn't get to start before. It's important that you're doing it now. And I'm really enjoying the content, like I said. But
Thank you. Thank you.
yes, I have always wanted to have a social media presence. And I think that also just comes from, again, like seeing what you
Hmm.
see is what you know. I would
Hmm.
never have been able to do this without such positive influences in my life. Like my friend, again, that's a superstar model right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I know. So that's what I want to do.
Yeah. And I love that too because I feel like having a social media presence, like so many people kind of can laugh at that, oh, you think you're gonna make money being like a content creator, things like that, when there's actually so much money in the industry. And honestly, too, I think though more that it's just like you don't realize the community you can build, especially when you have niche things like fitness or like travel for me. Like I've already connected with so many other like-minded travelers, and I'm sure you can say the same too about the fitness industry, and I don't think people realize, of course, obviously gaining traction and engagement, all of that is great, and landing like brand deals and things. We love that, but the community and just finding others who are like you, like nothing beats that. And especially like that most of them are strangers, like most supporters are like strangers. But I think that just goes to show that we're all human and we really do have so much in common with others and natural, just mutual interest. And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I love that.
I've talked about that to someone that I met through traveling, and we've talked about how
I
even
love that.
though like we're basically strangers, we're our biggest supporters because we're like, yes, I just want to see you succeed. And then there's people in your life that are like basically have been your best friends their whole life and they don't always have your best interest in mind. And it's crazy how sometimes strangers are your biggest support.
I know, I know. Yeah, it's something I'm kind of like learning because like I'll always think about posting things and I feel like most people they'll say don't care about what these people think, strangers, but I don't care what strangers think. I always think what are my like closest friends gonna think? But then I'm like, but they're my friends. I think they would support me, but what if they think this way a little, So I totally get that. But I think it's great that you had Brittany is her name, right?
Britain.
Britton. Okay. I think remember her. I watched Too Hot to Handle like so long ago, but I think it's great that you had her in that positive influence. I feel like for me that was kind of like Camille because she was constantly just posting, and that's when I like
So good.
yes, and I started YouTube a little. I started YouTube before I met her, but then she was the one I saw like she carried that little vlog camera everywhere, and I was like, "Hey, this is totally."
Like I could do that.
Yeah, this is totally a thing. Like I need to start bringing my camera on more. But anyways, I love that positive reinforcement that went into all of this. Okay, so we just talked about the positivity on that. So also I'm wondering, how has being on social media embraced your space in the industry? So all on a positive note, how has this been for you?
I'm not even gonna lie, external validation on social media has helped me so much. And I know you're still like, do it for yourself, but no, I don't care if anyone tells you that, like, oh, I don't care about the likes and the, but yes, external validation is really nice.
It
And
is. I 100% agree. They're
like,
like, don't
don't
worry about the
lie.
likes. But I'm like, I was just thinking about this yesterday. I was like, how many people are in this world? And 10 people watch my YouTube video. You know what I mean? But I totally get it with like the external validation. But it is, it's just nice and refreshing that people think that way of you. And it's great.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I don't know if it's a combination of imposter syndrome or like the weird societal doubt of being a woman and never be like feeling smart enough or big enough to take up space, but social media has helped boost my confidence so much and allowed me to feel like I can share my knowledge without second guessing myself all the time. I still do it all the time. But and it's given me a space to be vulnerable and admit when I'm wrong and reflect on it. I
Oh,
love it.
excuse me. I love that for you because social media can have such a negative rep to it. So it's really refreshing and reassuring to hear that you love that you're able to post on there and it does give you confidence because people find so many times like they find themselves resisting to post on social media because they're nervous or they're like not going to get confident, like a confidence boost out of it. But it's so possible.
Agreed. And yeah. And then it's also like the people that are telling you, oh, you'll never be big, or like, why are you doing that? You're like, do you watch, what are you watching on your phone?
Right, right,
Who are
right.
you watching? Who were they before? They were just a random person. And then people like you, Mr. Rude Pants, started watching them.
Exactly. And don't come back when I'm big and I'm making it.
Exactly.
Okay. And also on your social media, you've been traveling as well. And I feel like you definitely touched on work-life balance before because I see people like will ask you questions and you have answered. But I just wanted to touch on that a little bit because you work, you exercise, you obviously focus on nutrition, you travel, and your travels look so amazing. And you are filming everything all at the same time and editing it and cutting it all down and posting so consistently. So I'm just wondering how you do all of that and what skills specifically do you use to manage your time and prioritize all of these things that you want?
I honestly just love maximizing my schedule and being busy.
Hmm.
I think I function so well just being busy and like having back-to-back things because if I have too much time, I'm just gonna like spend way too much time doing one thing. And although it does run into each other a lot, but I don't know. My therapist might say I need to work on like being still and breathing
Hmm.
because when my routine falls to pieces. But yeah, I think prioritizing is a skill in general because if you're able to reflect on the things that you value and then map your schedule accordingly, it's huge and it's like invaluable skill.
I would say that's honestly a huge piece of information to run with because I've always, not that so many people make like excuses, like literally me here earlier, how I was like, I don't have a consistent schedule. But when I was doing the other program that my former trainer gave me, like I literally, me and Adam sat down together and we were like, okay, we know that this workouts are going to take us like an hour. So where can we plug it in? But it really does come down to, like you said, reflecting on your priorities and how you're going to squeeze them in. And I feel like people just kind of see like, oh, I have this long work day. I have to make dinner when I get home. I have to maybe take my dog out. I have kids. I have to do this. But they don't really see the breakdown of like, well, how much time are you spending doing this? How much time are you spending doing that? Like,
Mhm.
break down your days through the hours. Take a second to reflect and see, like, oh, I actually have 30 minutes here. Maybe I can do 20 minutes of yoga or 20 minutes of something else you want to prioritize and add into your life. So I actually think that was perfectly said the
Yeah.
way you explained it. And I do think that you're right. Having that is just a skill in itself and self-awareness. That self-awareness and kind of self-encouragement to be like, these are the things I want. I know I'm going to put them in to my schedule.
Yeah. I would, yeah, most definitely. And it's like you really have to actually visualize what you really want because you could see all
Yes.
these social media doing all the fitness stuff, but like, is that the life that you want? Do you actually want to do that, or do you just want to look like them?
Yeah,
Like,
no, that is really good because I was kind of having that like debacle with myself. I forget what it was, but the other day, and I kind of had to reflect, and I was like, is this really what I want? Again, I totally forget what it was, but yeah, it's kind of like again, you don't know until you know, right? So like
exactly.
if you think you want something and then you give it a try and you hate it, don't force it,
Exactly.
you know?
And then balancing for myself, like, could I probably apply to a 9 to 5 now that I've graduated? Well, I'm still working on my master's, but and make a little bit more money, probably. But am I okay with living at home and working at a gym so I can work out right after work and like match my schedule, focus on school, and use my teeny little bank account to travel for months at a time since I just have a part-time job? Like, yeah,
No,
that's my
literally,
priorities.
yeah, no, okay. Literally, I feel that so much because I feel the exact same. Like I'm a preschool teacher aide and it's not the best pay. Like teachers already don't make enough. How much you think an aide is going to get paid, you know? But like you said, you and Adam are living with his grandparents, and we are fortunate enough to not have to pay any rent. And so, like you were saying, I know though that I'm content with that because I prioritize what I do want to spend my money on and put it towards. And so, since I'm happy where I'm at, I don't really have to change it yet until I want to maybe prioritize something next. Like me and Adam, our next priority is obviously getting our own space and getting back into that realm. But for now, we're like, it's working. And so you could go out and get a 9 to 5, but you prioritize fitness. And so you work at a gym that provides that. And it probably makes the transition so easy to go from shift to workout. And
Yeah.
it's all about how you see everything as a whole and how things are going to work out. Because then if you had a 9 to 5, you have to make that commute and get changed and all of that in between. So
Meal
it's just what do you
prepping.
want? Yep, meal prepping, yeah. So another thing too, kind of with your social media, because I struggle with this because I'm not too consistent like at all. Do you plan your social media out? Like, do you have a content calendar or do you kind of, you're going to be exercising that day and like you're recording anyways, so you're just going to make it into content? Like, how does that look for you on those sides of things?
I have gone back and forth between making a calendar and sticking to it. But I only get like 2 weeks. I get 2 weeks of content and it's planned, and then the 2 weeks are up. And I got so busy, or I guess I just didn't make enough time for it.
Hmm.
Like replan and keep creating content because you're just always like filling this back order of making content. So it's just like I usually just plan, I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to be doing for the next few weeks, like life in general.
Hmm.
So I have an idea of what I'm going to be doing. And because I've scheduled my life the way that it is, I have time kind of make content.
Do you set out time specifically for editing, or is that just kind of like whenever you can find free time, that's when you'll edit?
I've tried to be a little bit better about that with time management. And like, if I have all my videos recorded, I'll try and edit it. But sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't because I don't know if I have like adult ADHD or something, but I'll forget about it. And then I'll just have like lots and lots of hours of random filmed content and I won't feel like going back and editing it. So it's usually probably like 4 or 5 hours out of the day. That sounds like a lot. Not every day, but with like recording and working out and then I get distracted making a video and then also scrolling on social media for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally get that because I'm trying to find that balance, like kind of like how you were saying, like I'll start a calendar and then something comes up and I'm like, oh, I can't edit this today. Or something I've been running into recently is I'll come home and I'll want to edit something, but Adam like finally has time off, or we'll finally like have time off together. And I'm like, I'm gonna edit this really quick. And then it ends up taking me like 4 hours.
Oh my
And
God,
it's kind of
yeah.
like, there goes our night. So I've been trying to be a little bit more aware of using my time wisely with editing and separating that when Adam is like at work or when he's busy so that it doesn't take away from us. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what
That's
I've been doing.
actually that's another same thing about like you get so wrapped up in work and like social media is a job that doesn't really turn off. So you just get so wrapped up
Yeah.
and you have to make sure that you're still prioritizing again, priorities, main theme, like the
Yeah.
people around you and the people that actually exist in your
Yeah.
face.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I thought about turning that into a whole episode itself, actually talking about like priorities and stuff. Because I think if more people understood that, they would just be able to accomplish so much more.
Yes.
You know, it's a
Even in
good point.
corporate America, they're honestly just wasting time all day. Not everyone, but
Yeah.
with like things that don't need to be happening or like just requiring you to be there when the work is done. You're like,
Hmm. Okay, well, that does conclude almost all. There's one more. So yeah. So here's just the last one that we're gonna end on. I thought this would just maybe be a little fun one or give us a little more insight into kind of the fitness industry and different things as an outsider looking in. Obviously, talking about social media, there's tons of different fitness influencers or just fitness that you see on the TV and this and that. So I'm wondering, what is one myth in the fitness industry that you have seen or you have maybe watched become a trend or something like that that you wish would just end? You're like, this is soul sucking people and I just need it to end.
picking sides, which I think is everywhere in everything like politics and everything. There's no one right way to eat. Like carnivores love you, but shut up. Vegans love you, but shut up. Not everyone can be vegan. Like
Right.
not everyone has the resources to do all these things. And my dad just sent me a podcast with this guy, I think Paul Saladino, who was basically done it all. He's done the extremes of every version. And he at the end,
Ooh.
he's like, oh, guess what? A combination of everything works best. And you're
Right,
like,
right,
really? So you look at all the nutritionists and the dietitians preaching balance, and you're like, the
right.
but
Yeah.
no one wants to hear that because it's so hard to fight the temptation of quick fixes. But that is what I wish would end.
Yeah, that's a great one. I never really thought of that in just kind of, well, obviously I thought of like, pulling one way or another, like different sides. But I totally agree. I think that there's a fine line to everything. And if it's just like a meet in the middle, just coming together and having a diverse set of options and opinions is so strong. Like any class you would take, I feel like so many times in my classes, it was mentioned just as a social aspect, having diversity in a social setting or anything. It's just amazing because it's different perspectives, different backgrounds, different takes on things, which I feel like how you were saying, if you're looking from two different sides of different things or all sides of things, and if everybody would just put their stuff together and then you figure out the strongest points of everything, you know?
Exactly. And that could be a whole nother episode on its own of just like the way that world works and the way that
Yeah.
things work in your body is it's the same.
Yeah, honestly. But yeah, that was a good one. I didn't know what to expect for that because I don't know. Like a myth, I guess, me looking on like the outside in. Something that I've always was like, what the hell is this? It's like skinny tea. I'm
Oh
like,
my
this has to
God,
be the
yeah.
most biggest bullshit. Which I feel like that too. Like we could get into all of that and like another episode and just like the bullshit of all of that stuff.
I
But
meant to talk about all the well, okay, I don't want to keep this long, but like all the random stuff that I did when I was a teenager because I was like, this is how you get skinny. Did you do the saran wrap?
no, but my mom did.
I was like, that came up like yesterday when someone was talking about. I was like, oh my God, I did do that.
No, I know. And that's like you said you were younger doing that, right?
Yeah, and that's the other crazy part. I was like, that is so sad.
I know, yeah. It's insane, like the influence that teenagers get. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that there's people like you that exist on our social media. And I hope that these young, aspiring fitness people can find you and find your page.
Yeah. Thank you.
That'd be
I'm
great.
so
Of
excited.
course. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I've been thinking about having you on here for so long, and finally I was like, I need to text her, and I'm so happy I did. I really wish we could do this in person.
I
Um,
know.
that's honestly why I was pushing it off for so long because I was like, I just want to record this in person. But anyways, now I'm getting off topic. But again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories and opening up. If you're a listener, thank you for tuning in. I hope you learned something this episode or maybe found a bit of inspiration. If you don't follow Alyssa, I definitely recommend checking out her page. I'll put her at in the description and I'll be tagging her on all of the Instagram post on Don't Wait Till Monday podcast, so make sure to follow. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode. Alyssa, if you have anything you would like to say, feel free.
I just want to say thank you. This is a really great podcast and I love talking to you as always. So thank you again.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.